You know what the beauty about cinema is?
That we can, escape into a different world or whatever?
Not quite.
In certain circumstances, it can provide a reflection into the morals and mannerisms of human society, correct?
Exactly.
It can open minds and project new ideas that are key to seeking emotion that can be evoked by the human psyche.
Most importantly, it can be that window in which we needed to kickstart our imagination into what we believe can be in the realm of possibility.
This is thanks to projection and interjection.
In the grand scheme, it can be interpreted as a period piece in which we see truly what people fought for and what issues were highly influential to cinema at the time being.
Okay, but how? I get that those Oscar movies or whatever are like that, but action movies, especially those superhero ones, aren't they all about pew pew and destruction?
Not at all.
Bryan Singer was a prominent director in the mid-90s who was tasked to make the next super movie of the new millennium.
He brought upon a stellar cast to form X-Men. It included 2 Shakespearean actors and an Australian, which in the 2000s was risque.
This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
But with his career writing what was supposed to be the next big thing, with one such scene being especially crucial. He created a continuing franchise that was about to become the entire central tone of the Marvel Universe from there on out. It included a chess match of minds between Magneto and Professor X.
Doesn't it ever wake you in the middle of the night? The feeling that someday they will pass that foolish law.
I find this scene particularly interesting because it really emphasizes 2 conflicting ideologies arguing about how to deal with, essentially, being different. Must they, as mutants, fight the existing power to be equal to it? Or do they try to mold into what they find an acceptable standard for their agenda? It's this correlation we see in such prolific figures like Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, who Bryan Singer considered to be an inspiration for the characters he created. The X-Men, like minorities, fight to be included, but to continue to see them cast away due to some sort of indifference. So they continue the crusade, especially on the big screen.
One franchise in particular that dips into being diversified has lent somewhat a hand in the battle of awareness, but not with mutants, but with minorities. Whether it's Michael Peña's dad being deported, or T.I. stealing a cop car to help the squad.
The MCU is one of the highest grossing movie universes that minorities have yet to have more equal representation in the films they produce.
But why? You see them in every movie.
TV Guide exemplified this point when showing the common tropes that movies and TV shows use to try to include minorities. Instead of showing culturalism, they fall back on tokenism.
One name when describing these tropes are the BBFs or the MBFs, Mexican best friends, with traits that show them as wise, the comic relief, and only meant to aid, not inhabit the main character's journey. The MCU exploits stereotypes and sells it to us viewers as diversity.
Seriously, you could do whatever you want to do. What makes you happy? I don't know.
It's a one-dimensional archetype used to meet a certain quota in Marvel movie properties.
Hold up. What about Black Panther, though? He is African American and totally not the best friend to anyone.
And why is that?
It's because Black Panther isn't affiliated with the other superheroes and stands by himself. However, even in the movie Captain America Civil War, you see how he never actually drives the plot. He only aids to cause disruption.
Even though being queer in the comic books isn't usual, the MCU still has to catch on to the idea that it is alright for characters to be anything other than heterosexual and not fetishize it or make a joke out of it. In X-Men, Bobby comes out to his parents about being a mutant. His mom says to him,
"Have you tried not being a mutant?"
His mother's comment symbolizes a lack of acceptance in society of people who are different. Our active imagination may lead us to think that being a mutant in X-Men, or being a homosexual for that matter, is a choice that a person can simply repress to fit in and make others more comfortable.
The only time that we see any inkling of Deadpool being pansexual, besides a brief remark about fondling Wolverine's balls, is the scene being the bottom. No. Active imagination may again make us think that being transparent about one's sexuality is taboo.
Okay, but what if it doesn't speak to everybody? Like, being hetero is the norm, right?
Wrong. As Jack Carr states in his article, what's up with Marvel's strange refusal to add LGBT superheroes to the MCU? 10 to 20% watching the MCU movies are something other than straight. And while Deadpool was robbed of one of his defining characteristics, that he is pansexual, we see that it's possible for somebody to be queer in the MCU with Jessica Jones' Hogarth. Hogarth in the Netflix series is a woman who has to deal with a wife and a mistress, which shows us that it is possible to have a lesbian on a show and not use her as a sexual plot device.
Well, Vanessa from Deadpool, like, she was also robbed of her superpowers, which define her character, and...
So happy that you bring that up. Marvel diversity may have its issues, but the portrayal of their female characters leaves something even less desired.
Shocking.
Yes, my friends, I hate to say it, but Marvel has a gender problem. And we ain't talking boy versus girl here. I'm talking about a systemic weakening of a gender projected onto the big screen.
Esther Zucker wrote an article defining this problem perfectly. She points out the startling contrast of how Wanda and Peter Parker are treated in the name of with great power comes great responsibility. It shows that Marvel heroines are considered inferior to men due to their inability to control their powers and overuse of the love interest role. It seems to be an underlying tone that plagues the MCU.
And helps infect the idea of a superheroine only being useful by sexualizing themselves in order to further the plot and forever install a false projection that we can have a compelling, driven woman that can push the plot forward without having to gawk over her.
Whether it be Pepper Potts to Tony Stark, Gamora, daughter of Thanos, sidekicking to Star-Lord, Vanessa in Deadpool being stripped of her superpowers as to not overpower Deadpool and serve as the fridging and damsel in distress plot device, and especially Black Widow's long history of sexual encounters with fellow Avengers.
Yamato writes about the apparent and obvious slut-shaming that continues throughout Marvel movies and how Black Widow uses it to her advantage.
First it's Hawkeye, and how she helps him beat his mind control due to the memories of companionship they once had. Then she gives Steve Rogers a big ol' slobber to avoid Hydra.
And who could forget her forbidden love between the Jolly Green Giant?
Active imagination. Through projection and introjection, we, as viewers, take only her sexualized version away, or that Wanda was hidden and feared, while Peter Parker celebrated.
And Marvel's digital property, Jessica Jones, is the perfect example as to why female superheroines, such as Black Widow, don't have to be sexualized or without a real story to be badass.
Come with me.
The famed psychologist Carl Jung introduced the theory that movies help internalize the meanings we perceive by reading subtle nuances and underlining themes and subjects in film. The MCU reflects what society deems to be acceptable in modern times, or at least tries, but the numbers show this to be true with the massive money they've accumulated.
Call me a tea-sipping Gandhi rebirth, but I hope one day Marvel will see that these stereotypes don't speak for their cultures, and one day Marvel will realize a diverse crowd may even make them more money.
One day, I hope.
Thanks for watching! Don't forget that your active imagination starts working directly after this movie.
If you want to view paradise, simply look around.